The sector's sustained growth and health is very important to the Indian GDP. If the country wants to grow at 7-8%, or if the country wants to aspire to be a 5 trillion economy, then MSME sector must grow at 10 to 12%, and its size must go to 2 trillion economy. 2 trillion is roughly, you can say, 150 lakh crore. But the sector has a lot of challenges, and the few limitation of the MSME is assessment to the technology advancement. There is no centralized large market. There is a scattered market. Although there was a talk by the sector minister, MSME minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, they were introducing Alibaba kind of portal, and they were supposed to introduce in month of November, but might be it's delayed. We are yet to see the light. As we know, because of this COVID and lockdown, the sector is going through the turbulence and seeing a whose credit gap. It believed that only 20% of the MSME have access to the formal credit. This means 80% of the MSME, specifically micro and small enterprise, they depend on the informal channel of the bank finance, informal channel of the finance, which is obviously a bit costly. Although there is a reasonable bank credit to the medium-sized enterprise, but micro and small enterprise are lacking and deprived of adequate bank funding. And one of the reason of this is that the cost of distribution of the money, and even the cost of recovery, and also cost of operation is very high when it comes to funding the micro enterprises. So friends, here I believe private sector banks can play a very crucial role. They have a very advanced technological platforms. They've digitalized their operations. They are using a lot of applications like machine reading, where from checking the score, the online score, even from the risk assessment, or even the quantum of the loan can be assessed in 2 minutes by clicking a button. In fact, the government's initiative of this loan in 59 minutes up to 1 crore is an initiative in that direction only. Friends, we have very eminent bankers here to address the session, and I'm privileged to have Mr. Prashant Gupta. He's the head SME ICICI Bank for the East. He's there in the banking industry for the last 20 years. Prior to that, he was in some distribution for 4 years. Mr. Prashant Gupta, he is a graduate from St. Xavier's College. He's a chartered accountant. He's a fellow chartered accountant, and he did his CA in 1994. And Mr. Gupta is one of the most admired and recognized banker I have come across in the East at least in the last 10 years. On the person side, he is an avid marathon. He has participated in many marathons across the country. Friend, our second speaker is Mr. Vivek Saraf from Standard Chartered Bank. Vivek is a MBA and he is CFA from USA. He is also a ex-ICCI. Prior to joining Standard Chartered Bank, he was with ICCI and ITC. Vivek is also a seasoned banker. Friends, both our speakers are very well recognized and all equivalent and appreciated bankers here. Not only they have earned the personal reputation, they have brought a good reputation and to the entire industry. Our third speaker here is Mr. KK Chapadia, and to introduce Chapadiaji in front of the CA fraternity is something like introducing Amitabh Bachchan in front of the Bollywood fraternity. So he is a well recognized, and Mr. Chapadia has a vast experience over more than almost now 3 decades in the CA, and he will address today on the tax initiatives and tax planning for the MSME sector. So now I will like that let's hear from the horse's mouth. So I will request Mr. Prashant Gupta to take it forward. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Vijayji. Thank you very much for having me here. A very good afternoon to all the fellow members of the Institute. This is a great opportunity that you're giving me to be able to speak to you on MSME. Yes, as Vijayji said. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so as Vijayji said, MSMEs are the backbone of Indian economy as they are across the world. They do contribute significantly in terms of employment generation, being the second largest employment generator after agriculture. And just to get the equality aspect in, about 15% of the entrepreneurs in MSME are the fairer sex. So it does bring in the inequality to the for other sex to also participate in this. Yes, MSMEs do contribute significantly to the economy, and having said that, one of the big challenges for them is getting finance, uh, be it the seed capital initially when they are starting their business, or subsequent different phases of getting growth capital. Uh, the funding honestly can be divided into two parts for them. Initially, when the business is being set up, there is the seed capital that they will require. Normally, this seed capital is raised from within the family, or in some cases from friends and relatives. And the initial 2-3 years is a period when these businesses are trying to establish the idea and give some kind of a physical shape to the entire business idea that they have. And this is the period when the promoters really rely on their internal sources, and this is something when the entire idea is taking shape. Probably next year or 2 years is a period when they will be, depending on the kind of businesses they are in, they will be looking at some kind of a venture funding. Again, this venture funding can come from funds. There are these external institutions that can help you in putting in some kind of a money, but there is a general averse approach or attitude towards getting venture funding in the traditional kind of businesses. But the new age businesses, they do welcome the venture capital investors, not only for their contribution in terms of the capital that they bring in, but also the discipline and the market repute credibility that they also bring in with it. And it's the phase after that when the idea has taken some kind of a shape and there is a requirement for growth capital. That is when these institutions, these young MSMEs, they require higher capital. Again, this capital we can divide into two parts. There is that risk capital portion of it, and there is that growth capital portion of it. And as lenders, we are welcome and we are happy to contribute towards the growth capital portion of it. The risk capital being the one where there are disproportionate rewards. Probably that is something that has to come from the promoters, or again the equity contributors, as the case may be. So given that backdrop that yes, there is a business model that has kind of taken some shape, and now there is a requirement for growth capital. Why is it that these people are not able to arrange for the funds? Just to bring in the other side of the divide, today banks are sitting on liquidity. That money is getting deposited with RBI on a reverse repo rate, currently 3.35% per annum. Honestly, it doesn't make any commercial sense for one to put in money with RBI on a reverse repo kind of a pricing. And still they are going ahead and keeping that money with Reserve Bank. So why there is this divide? Why on the one side there is a borrower who has got a business model that has taken shape, and there is a lender who has got liquidity available? Then why is it that the two are really not meeting each other? Why is it that they don't, marry and kind of, do business jointly, wherein there is a lender who wants to lend, there is a borrower who wants to borrow? Why does this happen? Uh, my experience over these years, I find there are some 5-6 reasons broadly that do cover uh, this reason, or they explain why this kind of a situation is there. Uh, the first and biggest I believe in that is these are primarily young informal organizations. These are primarily young informal organizations, and most of the times, the promoters, they find it difficult to separate themselves from the organization. So it's kind of, one and the same, whether it is the business or my personal finances. And this fungibility many a times does end up as detrimental to the entity. And, it is one of the major factors why a financial institution, is kind of wary of getting into funding to these MSMEs. The second big factor is the business model itself. The business models are built, and this is something which will generally be covering about 90% of the organizations that are in this sector. The models are really fragile. They are depending either on one or a couple of large uh, organizations, large entities on either on the supply side or on the demand side, and even minor stocks. They kind of completely change their business model. Let alone the kind of shock that we are currently seeing. Even uh, somebody who was a distributor, say for PNG, if PNG was to decide that we really don't want to continue with you as a distributor, now there is no business model. Just taking an example. So the entire model, it survives on a very limited and a base where this promoter, this entrepreneur, he has got a relatively lesser control. As these organizations season and they grow after 8-10 years, yes, they have that ability to expand, or they gain that ability to expand. And of course, after that, the situations do change, but the initial period of this 7-8 years, it is really difficult for them in terms of the fragility of the business model. The third factor that I do see as and this is something that has been a long-standing, complaint or observation from most of the lending fraternity, is the lack of information sharing. This is something that when certain event has occurred for a lender who is considered as a partner in the business, for him to get that information, it takes its own time. And by the time that this lender gets to know about this, probably the situation is beyond a scope of a quick repair, at least, if not a permanent damage that has occurred to the business. The coupled with this is the information sharing structure for these organizations in the country at large. Be it publication of their balance sheet, board meetings, annual reports, quarterly results, these kind of things which are available for the larger organizations that are listed. This information is not available for these MSMEs. and here is somebody who has lent money. Again, that money is something that has been borrowed from market. They are acting more as custodians, and for them, this information not coming in time, that is a big challenge. And whatever does come, that also is dated. And last, a controversial point, but I believe we all on this webinar will agree to this, depending on the degree of agreement that we all have, is the reliability of the information that does come in. It's a big question. Something, once it goes bad, the financial institution, the lender, comes to know that whatever was being told last 3 years, 4 years, is something which may not have been what is the as we call it, a true and fair picture of the actual ground situation. And this is what actually makes MSME as a sector, as something which gets construed as a riskier sector for the MSME, for the lending fraternity to get into this business. And there is a feeling that we do see uh, in the economy or from the industry, is that decisioning has kind of stalled. Lenders are not willing to lend to MSMEs. While there are enablements, there are those cost pricing reductions, there is that liquidity that has got infused. Friends, that liquidity is available. There is that willingness. There is that willingness to lend, but to whom to lend? I'll just give you some data over last, maybe last year and a half, to just give you a sense as to where MSME lending is in India. And this data, as Mr. Dharak told, is primarily considering MSME definition of as entities whose top line is 100 crore. Once it goes up to 250, the numbers are likely to only go up. So the lending to MSMEs is about 17.75 lakh crore as of now, and which is about 28% of a total of about 65 lakh crore of total lending to different sizes of entities across the economy. And out of this, about 50% is what has been lent by the public sector banks, 37.5% by the private sector banks, and remainder about 12.5% is what is coming from NBFCs and other NBFIs. So there is a reasonably large, contribution that is coming. There is a large share of lending that is going to MSMEs. Yes, definitely there is a requirement to do more, and there is a need for these organizations to get more funding, again, to upgrade technology, to fund purchases of their raw material or whatever working capital requirements that are there. But at the same time, the other two important data that comes with this is the kind of growth that we have been seeing in MSME funding from various financial institutions. The lending has been disproportionately higher to MSMEs. It was somewhere around 17% till financial year 18, the growth. And that number has tapered down in FY19. And in the quarter of December 2019, it only came down to 1.9% growth. So why there is this sharp decline? The lenders were warming up, and they were increasing their lending to these MSMEs across the vertical. But why this sudden and sharp fall in the lending? Friends, when any financial institution is lending to MSMEs or for that matter to any entity, the NIM that they make, and this is something which gets published on a quarterly basis. Most of the banks do come out and share their NIM overall at a bank level and at different portfolio cuts is ranging from 3.5 to 4.1% per annum on the total loans that they extend. You will be surprised that the additional NPAs in 1 year in calendar 2019 were 3.03%. So if I'm making say a 3.75% NIM and I have got a 3.03% NPA, I don't think we are creating an environment for a lending institution to go ahead and confidently lend. And this also is coupled with an overall NPL number of 16.8% in the banking NBFI sector as on December 2019. And just to give you a cut further, and I'll tell you why this is why I'm sharing this. Within the PSUs, this is 18.9%. Almost 100 रुपए में से 20 rupee out of 100 rupees, 20 rupee doesn't come back. That is NPA today. The result is the lending by public sector banks has come down. If we were to see the share of fresh lending between PSUs and private banks in calendar year 19, that is the last data that I could lay my hands on. Private sector banks have had a share of 40%, public sector had 38%. The remainder had come from PSUs, from NBFCs and other MLIs. So there is a sharp decline in the fresh lending by public sector banks. And these public sector banks, they have always had a larger share in the overall funding to MSMEs. So there is some basic disconnect, basic issue in funding to this sector. Again, this is something that unfortunately gets generalized, and there are always some very, very good enterprises. There are entrepreneurs who are doing great work, but the moment you look at an MSME, you have to start getting into that much more, detailed analysis as to, am I getting into the right enterprise? And yes, this definitely does delay decision making when these kind of numbers are there to back, your decision. That this is where we stand. So this entire backdrop of actual data, the growth that we have seen, and the deceleration in additional lending, what is further, accentuated this problem is the two major events that have happened in last almost 1 year to date. One is whatever happened with NBFCs, because they were an informal channel and they were contributing in their own significant way in financing to the many of the MSMEs. And second is whatever has happened in this pandemic. So how do we actually, come over this? What is it that we need to do? There are a few initiatives that have been taken. There are a few products also that have worked well and have helped in flow of credit to MSMEs. There is this developments on the Credit Information Bureau, the sharing of information within banks Friends, the SMA reporting bit that RBI has started over last maybe 2.5, 3 years is something that has helped in a big way. CIBIL is giving their own data. They have started coming out with some kind of CIBIL MSME rank that does help banks to to take a credit call, a lot more informed call. So this information bureau, again, this is something, as I said, this lack of information, to an extent we are trying to address it, but there is still a long way, I believe, to go. uh, the the second bit is something that the government has done by extending this scheme, CGT MSE scheme. Most of you would have heard about this, for funding to micro and real small enterprises. Again, during this COVID period, they have come out with something for additional 20% funding. The NCTGC scheme, the trust that has got constructed. So again, these are things that kind of give confidence to lenders that yes, you go ahead. This sector does require funding, but having said that, the sector has to stand on its own. They will have to create that environment around the entity itself for lender to come out. But the biggest contributor and the biggest push, and that is where, as I just shared, the share of private banks has gone up, is the use of digital, where banks are now able to use ML, AI to analyze financials in their own way, and not really depend on what is being told, what is being shared. And that is helping us in in taking far more informed calls, that yes, here is an enterprise that looks good and that meets the cut. There are various platforms on which different banks are investing and have invested to help them take a far more informed decision. We are going to see use of more and more such technology platforms that will help banks to read through different documents and maybe take an informed call. And ultimately, what this will do is this will help them to lend to MSMEs, and for MSMEs to borrow, and the right businesses to get funded. So with this, honestly, where do we move forward? I believe the biggest the part has to be biggest change that has to come is on sharing of information. If we are giving that confidence to the borrower, to the lender, that here is what you are getting into, the lenders do have funds available and they want to lend. There is a clear margin of 3.35 to an 8.35 or 5% kind of a margin if I was to take a benchmark kind of a number. So a 5% kind of a margin to be made. Why banks will want to put money with RBI? Again, in this process, the other big thing that has to happen is this. If I may use a word, a khichdi to be avoided, where a promoter separates himself from the entity and the entity runs on the basis of its own business, on its own merit, and it is not getting influenced by personal requirements, personal decisions beyond a point. Again, fellow members, I believe you are in the best possible position to bring about this change. As their auditors, advisors, consultants, you have the ears of the promoters with you. And they do listen to you. They do seek your opinion, advice on many of their business decisions. This fraternity can play a big role in helping MSMEs to come out. And get the right kind of funding. And you know what we need to do as a fraternity is put value to the green tick. If I'm putting a green tick on a document, then it is certified as true and correct. I know these are not the words that we currently use, but yes, it's like for a third party, it's kind of a doctor's prescription. If my doctor is telling me take this medicine, I just go to a medicine shop and buy that medicine. I don't check whether this medicine is right or wrong. I simply go and buy that and consume that, and I'm confident this is what is going to treat me. I completely rely on that. So this fraternity, we as members of this institute, we can actually help in a very, very big way in creating that trust and help both the lenders and the borrower MSMEs to come together. We can actually bridge this divide and give a big boost to the growth in MSME sector. And yes, as Mr. Dharak told, a 2 trillion kind of a contribution and truly achieving a 5 trillion economy dream. So my appeal, my request to all the fellow members, we can all contribute in our own way in getting this funding for MSMEs. With that, I want to thank all of you to have taken time out and listen to me. Thank you very much. Over to Vijayji.
Thank you, sir. It's always a sheer pleasure to listen to you. And thanks for sharing deep insight about how you perceive the sector and how you perceive. Sir, what I could make it out, and which we is also evident is also there is some trust deficit between the MSME segments and the financing institutions, specifically MSME, where those who are not much organized. Sir, trust me, chartered accountants have done a great job in formalizing structures of those MSMEs. If you look at a lot of proprietary firm and partnership has been committed to the companies, there is a greater transparency, there is a greater accountability. And whenever it comes to the compliance and regulations, is the chartered accountants and the other professional fraternity who has helped them in, otherwise either you can do business or you can look after the compliance. So the compliance part is taken so well care by the chartered accountant fraternity that they can focus on the business. Yes, in every industry some gaps are there, still the gaps are there. And with this, the more and more digitalization and now our GST returns and more synchronization of the information, a time will come where the banks will be able to do the transactional banking. I mean, by just clicking a button, they can assess this is a requirement and this is the fund should go. Now, thank you a lot, sir. It's always a pleasure to listen. Now, sir, I will, friends, I would like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Vivek Saraf. Vivek is a very young and dynamic, and it will be really a pleasure to listen to him. Vivek, you are there? Yeah.
Yes, Vijayji.
Yeah, so over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to the Graveyard Shift, a post-lunch webinar. Someone once asked me, what could be more boring than a post-lunch webinar? And I answered that worse than a post-lunch webinar would be one on a Saturday. So jokes apart, it is a great pleasure to be here. And I am humbled to be speaking alongside seniors and veterans like Mr. Prashant Gupta, an accomplished chartered accountant like Mr. K.K. Chapadia. I am thankful to Shri Vijay Dharakji, the session chair today, and Shri Naveen Khemkaji, president of US Exchange Study Circle, for giving me this opportunity. I feel great because possibly I am the only non-chartered accountant on this webinar today. So, friends, as Vijayji and Prashantji before me, they reeled out a lot of statistics and brilliant insights on the nature of the lending to Indian MSMEs, problems faced by Indian MSMEs, and what they can do to correct this situation going forward. I'm sure you've had your fair share of data. So I'll just try to bring inside a bit of cricket, into this, since almost most of us are here from Calcutta only, and I'm sure cricket lovers. So I have a very simple question for all of you. The year is 2001, 19 years back. Go back 19 years. The year is 2001. What comes to your mind when you hear 445 and 171? 445 and 171. I open up this to anyone who can hazard a guess.
Naveen, you can unmute the audience.
If audience wants to say something, they can unmute themselves.
Achha, oh, great. Okay.
That's the
Yeah, so I'll just-
India-Australia Kolkata test match, Eden Gardens.
Brilliant. So bang on. It was a very easy one. The Eden
Yeah.
Gardens Test match, India-Australia. 445 is
2001.
absolutely. 445 is the first inning score by Australia,
Australia.
and 171 is the score, the famous score at which India got bowled out and were made to follow on. This was followed by one of the greatest ever Test victories, coming from behind after being made to follow on. So we had brilliant 281 from VVS Lakshman, 180 plus for Rahul Dravid, and I believe a hat trick for Harbhajan Singh. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my way of telling you that MSMEs and the Indian economy have just been bowled out for 171, and we've been asked to follow on. So Vijayji gave those statistics about how MSMEs account for around 90% of the total industrial units in India. Depending upon which research report you've read, MSMEs employ around 40% of India's workforce, employ around 25 to 30% of contribute around 25 to 30% of the GDP, and contribute anywhere between 48 to 50% of India's exports. Hence, no doubt you may call it the backbone of the Indian economy. But I would in fact go a step further and call it the nervous system, or the central nervous system of the Indian economy. The brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral network of all the nerves which branch out to all parts of the body from the spinal cord. The body over here being the Indian economy. I'm sorry, after cricket, I'm bringing biology into a webinar of chartered accountants. My apologies for that. So the word nervous over here is quite important, friends, because never ever have things been so uncertain for so many of us, be it bankers, be it businessmen of all hues, be it MSMEs or large corporates, global corporates, or the chartered accountant fraternity. Never ever have things been more uncertain. The problems faced by the Indian economy are well known to all of us in this forum, So I will not speak about all those. In fact, Prashantji very beautifully laid those out. In fact, MSMEs have weathered a perfect storm, if I may call it that, over the last few years. You've had demonetization, you have technological disruptions in different industries, you have had e-commerce related disruptions, you've had GST, and as if all that was not enough, we now have the COVID-19 pandemic. So, the traditional challenges of MSME financing, like lack of reliant and transparent data on the bank side, and unreliable financials, lack of access, timely access to credit or inadequate credit, cumbersome paperwork, deficient infrastructure, lack of access to markets, a lot of other systemic inefficiencies are there. So let us put all this aside and flip the question. If MSMEs have weathered all these problems till now and are still alive, then the backbone of the Indian economy must be really strong. It is not all that too bad, and let us all not be too pessimistic. So rather than talk more about the problems, I would like to share a few thoughts on some possible solutions. These could vary from people to people, industry to industry, and entrepreneur to entrepreneur. So it's a buffet. You may pick and choose what applies to you or what you are able to do. I'd also take this liberty while talking in a webinar for chartered accountants to honor to voice some opinions which may not be too politically correct, but I'll still take the liberty of doing so. So the first and most important thing for all entrepreneurs or MSMEs is today to be open and transparent. Maybe this is more true being in Calcutta. So the idea is to be very open and transparent and do not hide. The reliability of the financial statements that you're signing and presenting to lending institutions or to any regulator has to really go up. All the promoters are, literally mortgaging anything and everything which is there. Personal guarantees of their own personal guarantees, the family's personal guarantees, your personal properties, your offices, your industrial units, everything is going. Why not make the balance sheet also a little bit more reliable? I'm not saying we are hiding, but I'm just saying, can we not increase the reliability a bit more? Show the true picture. This is not to say that banks are holy cows. In fact, there are flaws and deficiencies across the ecosystem, be it banks, clients, government, and other stakeholders. But can we not do our bit? Can we not do what is required of us? Second idea from my side would be technological upgradation. I'll just give you a very small example. Let's assume there is a small commodity trader sitting in Bada Bazaar or in Posta, and he may think, what can I have to do with technology? But boss, today we need to find and upgrade on the technology bit, innovation, maybe use social media, analytics, cloud computing, see what bit of the entire digital suite is applicable to your business and what can you bite. Take that small baby step towards digitization, whatever it is that is possible in your particular business. But you need to take that baby step to be relevant tomorrow. Thoughts from my side would be rethink your business model, reimagine your business model, your cost structures, whom you are buying from, whom you are selling to. Is there a way where you can be part of a supply chain for some large corporate or a mid corporate? Maybe banks will look at you slightly differently than the way they are looking at you today. Take advantage of the new age financing opportunities which are coming up, maybe a little less in Calcutta or this part of the country, but it is actually exploding in some other parts of the country. We have the fintechs, we have the Receivables Exchange of India Limited, the Trades platform. Think, can you not go to Trades and get your bill discounted if your debtors days is a little high? If your bank is not giving you that additional term loan because of lack of collateral or because they may not find your balance sheet a little suitable, can you not go to an NBFC which will do that equipment financing for you or that small capex that you want? Can you not go to SIDBI? Are there other opportunities available? Just think. And as advisors, as auditors, and other relevant stakeholders to the MSMEs, I think chartered accountants have a great role to play in advising them on all these new things which are happening. Ask banks, if your drawing power based model is not really working out, ask them for a cash flow based lending. Reserve Bank has come up with a lot of points under this COVID pandemic handling thing where you can approach your banks for increasing the debtor coverage period. Now, case to case, banks may take a call which may be acceptable to you, may not be acceptable to you, but I'm just saying. So, putting aside myself from the organization that I'm working in and your role as an advisor, why can't we do something? Let them come back with an answer. It may or may not be acceptable to us, but let us try all the opportunities, all the different options which are available in front of us right now. The emergency credit line, which the finance minister announced some time back, to my mind is a brilliant scheme rolled out under the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. It really targets risk aversion in banks and gives them an opportunity to help MSMEs who are otherwise a little stressed at this point of time. Banks will, actually not have any reason to say no because of the sovereign guarantee. The second point over here is that the 4-year tenure with a 12-month principal moratorium is also very well designed, and it removes the repayment worries in the short term. It absolutely improves the liquidity position of the borrower, helps them to pump prime their businesses. It's like restarting something which was shut for almost 2 months. Of course, some of us may think that why under the new MSME definition, which is clients with a top line of up to 250 crores, why they are not included in this. Well, that is a question only Modi ji and Nirmala Madam can answer at this point of time. But if you keep that aside, the MSME definition of up to 250 crores and plant and machinery gross block up to 50 crores is still a very welcome step, and it really brings in a lot of industries and a lot of borrowers into this fold. A 20,000 crore subordinated debt scheme for stressed MSMEs, 50,000 crore equity infusion for MSMEs through the fund of funds. These are all brilliant steps on paper right now. As they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So only time will tell how much was executed and how well it was executed. Global tenders to be disallowed up to 200 crores, another welcome step. MSMEs receivables from government and central public sector enterprises to be paid within 45 days. So while the finance minister announced that in her Atmanirbhar presentation, this was already there as a part of the MSME Act, and I wonder why it was not followed till now. Anyways, keeping all those questions aside, I go back to my next suggestion or thought. It may be a little difficult for the stressed MSMEs and for businessmen who are facing challenges from 360 degrees, but still, to the extent possible, try and honor commitments and do not lose trust of your suppliers, your customers, your employees, and your bankers. It may not be possible to keep all the people happy at all points of time, but as I mentioned, to the extent possible, explore and go digital. As I mentioned, take that baby step. Try and cut costs to the extent possible, reimagine and reevaluate your cost structures, outsource, use smart talent, freelancers, use the gig economy, try and anticipate the next big black swan event. In fact, black swan events are not black swan events anymore because they are happening with such regular frequency. As I mentioned, GST, demonetization, now COVID. So these are not once in a lifetime events anymore. Prepare yourself for that trauma management capability within your business. Think whether you can go asset light. Can you secure cash flows? Can you free up some cash flows which are there in non-productive fixed assets? Although it's a bad example, but can you be like the airline where you are paying operating cost for the airline, the operational rent, rather than buying and owning the aircraft, every aircraft? Can you do that? And while you do all this, also plan for the next upturn. It may be around the corner and it may come sooner than you expect. So it is very important that while you take care and keep one leg firmly in the present crisis, you must also plan for that upturn which may be there in your business, may be there in your industry. Now, all that I'm saying, it may sound too idealistic and too general, but as I mentioned earlier, it's like a buffet option. See and pick and choose what is applicable to you or what you may be able to do. It's not a one size fit all. Let's see what we can in our respective capacities can do. And I think that's about it from my side. I thank everyone for your patience to hear me and for the opportunity to speak in this August forum, the Views Exchange Study Circle for CAs. I would just like to now conclude with one message to everyone. This is just a follow-on. Going back to Eden Gardens 2001, this is just a follow-on. The test match is not yet over. Let us see who you want to be, VVS Lakshman or Rahul Dravid or Harbhajan Singh. These are the only three options available. There is no other option. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Vivek. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek, for your wonderful insight and presentation. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. Vivek, what I see is that one thing which MSME and small and medium enterprise miss is that they don't create the surplus liquidity. Like everything is invested in the business. If you look at the large corporate, if a large corporate has got a borrowing of 10,000 crore, you find 1,000 crore is, they are maintaining from some liquidity. If you look at the balance sheet of Reliance Industries, 35%, 40% of the borrowing is they've saved in the liquidity. So there, what happens when going is good, everything is fine. But when a bad times come, when a bad year comes, then they are into the trouble. And what happens, like these financial institutions and banks, 1 year if they get a bad balance sheet with incurring losses and all, then again the rating goes down, the cost of funds goes down. So that is the time we require somebody to help and give the additional funds at economical interest rate. But what happens? You say no, CRISIL is downgraded. Now my pricing will go up by 1%, 2%. So that is one thing. And second, as far transparency is concerned, I again say I'm in this business for the last 20 years, and now the balance sheets we are getting, and after this GST and the active role of chartered accountants over a period of last 10, 15 years, the current people in the profession are one of the most ethical, and they keep on although see they are outside consultants, they cannot they are not part of that business, they have their own limitation, but they keep on telling the clients to be more and more transparent and vigilant. And over a period of time, the things has become much more transparent, and I'm sure you also you and Prashant are also now seeing in the balance sheet. Yes, these rating agencies and looking at the balance sheets in a lean period, a little bit change has to be there. Now, you have our third speaker, is Mr. K.K. Chapadia, and I didn't introduce him saying that introducing will be like introducing Amitabh Bachchan to the Bollywood fraternity. But I like to say two things about him. He's a graduate from St. Xavier's College. He's a FCA, he's a fellow chartered accountant member for the last 25 years. He secured 22nd rank in his final exams. He's a amazing faculty, even at the C Institute and company CS, cost accountants, or even in the income tax. He's invited as a faculty, and he's one of a very learned faculty who's respected. In fact, rather than nowadays, more than a chartered accountant, I started calling him a academician because of his knowledge. And he has a great passion for the learning. And one thing I admire about him is looking at the things from a 360-degree angle. He doesn't look at the things from a very narrow mind. In fact, he tries to explore all the options there. So he's an amazing person, an amazing faculty, an amazing fellow chartered accountant, and brought a lot of respect to the industry itself. So now I'll request Chapadia ji to take it forward and share his experience. Yeah, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Vijay ji. Am I audible?
Yes,
Naveen, I would like to share my screen.
There is an option in your screen to share the screen. You'll just see at the bottom.
I have already put on that.
You have logged in through, yeah. Yes, your
Yes.
screen is up.
It's visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So, friends, good afternoon. When I was hearing Prashant Gupta and Vivek Sraf and my dear friend Vijay Darak, I was just wondering, are we back to the test match days? I mean, of late we have been used to the one-day match, T20 match, and now we are back to the test match. Friends, before I start my presentation, let me speak a few words about Vijay Darak and the ICICI Bank itself, because 8-9 years back, my family was venturing into a business in which Naveen was also a very little part of that venture. It was a baby diaper unit in Guwahati, and we were not used to taking bank loans, so the banks were saying that we want so many collateral, etc. We had nothing much to offer. And at that time, ICICI Bank, which have a lot of chartered accountants and who look at the 360-degree way of looking at the borrower's profile, so they said that no, we will fund you 10 crore rupees, no issue. So that way the family could manage that manufacturing industry, and and second of late, just about 3 months back, one of my clients, they were selling a property to a company in Hyderabad, a Chota Bheem company. So that company which does the serials Chota Bheem, so they were buying out a property in Sector 5. So it was a case wherein there was a LLP which was owning a property, and that property was intended to be sold to that as a LLP takeover to the Chota Bheem company. Now LLP transfer, most of the banks could not understand how can there be a LLP transfer, how can there be a sort of this holding. And the problem was that unless there was a LLP transfer, there will be a lot of cost on account of stamp duty. There was a lot of cost on account of taking fresh approval from the Webel. Again, I find my dear friend Vijay Darak, who said that yes, let us approach the ICICI. They can understand from a business profile, understand the thing from a businessman point of view, and if the government is a genuine one, so we explore those. And I'm glad to say that Vijay, through Vijay help, the ICICI Bank could sanction the loan, and it's a good party to be in the ICICI portfolio also. Coming to the when I look at the few days back announcements by the Honorable Finance Minister, etc., I find that out of 20 lakh crore rupees package, for the income tax, there is hardly 950,000 crore rupees which have been a part of that. It's only 2.5%. I mean, the reduction in the TDS and TCS rates by 25%, that is the only thing which has been offered for the taxation profile that way. So, but if I look at the banker perspective, so then banker perspective, 9 lakh crore rupees the RBI measures, 3 lakh crore is the collateral free loans, 50,000 crore is the fund of funds, and so many. So 75% of the funds are coming from the banks. So with that, I was just wondering on this today's topic, do I really have to say something about what are the taxation reforms which has come up in the? But then, since the topic was given to me, so I could find out some good points for all the persons who are present here, get something out of it so that they can act on it for their own benefits or for the benefit of the clients. So with that, I start my presentation. Now, my dear friends, Naveen, some scratch is coming, I think, in the screen. You have to take it care. Anyway, I am continuing with this. Naveen, are you aware of? Thank you. So now we find nowadays buzzword about the startups and the new manufacturing units.
So I'll just give me a minute. You'll find there's an annotate button over there. Annotate.
Yeah.
Once you click over there, you will find the scrolling and other things there. You can clear it from there.
Okay. So I can continue now, Naveen?
Yeah, and your voice is a bit cracking. I think your network is not that good. So if still it happens, then I'll request you switch off your video. You continue with the voice and the PPT sharing.
Oh. So tell me when I am required to switch off the video, else I am continuing. Okay. So first thing was the tax incentives. And when I'm meeting my clients across the building, etc., I find that most of them are saying कि छापड़े जैसा तो कमाई नहीं होगा, tax planning क्या करेंगे? And again, I find a lesson from Vivek was telling that it's a follow-on days. So let us not think कि अभी कमाई होगी कि नहीं होगी. आने वाले दिनों में कमाई का बात करें. So coming to the startups, it's a 3-year 100% tax holiday. What is a startup? How to get registered as a startup? I will come in my later slides. But then tax holiday does not mean कि जिस साल हम manufacturing start करेंगे उसी साल से startup start करेंगे. From that year only I am getting a 100% tax holiday. Years I choose any 3 years I like, and for the 3 years I am not paying any. I'm 100% tax holiday there under Section 80 IAC. This point I will discuss in detail in my subsequent slides. There is another section 54 GB. 54 GB क्या है? If you sell a residential house and you get a capital gain, long-term capital gain, and you invest in a startup, the entire gain gets exempt. Nowadays, the exemption has been withdrawn. Dividend taxable हो गई है. Long-term capital gain has become taxable on sale of shares. Withdrawn most of the exemptions. And with that, if we are getting exemption, 100% exemption, it's a wonderful thing which we can, if a person is selling a residential house, one can always think of. There are some conditions attached with getting this exemption, which I will be discussing in my subsequent presentations. Another section is there, that is 56(2)(7)(b). It is about the angle tax. We hear a lot of things about the angel investors, etc. So what is this angel tax? This says that under the 56(2)(7)(b), what happens if any company issues shares to anyone else, to a third party, then if it is issued at a price which is more than the fair market value under the Income Tax Act, then the difference between the issue price and the fair market value, that is treated as a deemed income under section 56 to 7B. My dear friends, you must be aware most of the companies, most of the startup companies like Ola, Uber, and Zomato, whatsoever it is, most of that companies, if you look at their balance sheet, Alibaba, Amazon, if I have got a chance to look at most of the balance sheets, they are running into huge losses, maybe 5,000 crore losses, 10,000 crore losses. Now, and we find that that company is being valued at 1 lakh crore rupees or whatever it is. And somebody puts in 20,000 crore rupees in that company, and then they buy a 20% stake, keeping in mind the valuation at say 1 lakh crore rupees. The question is, if the book value is negative, and if you are getting, sorry, yes, Naveen, should I switch off my?
I have switched off your video, sir.
Okay. So if those companies are, if those companies,
yes, moratorium period of 1 year on the principal amount shall be provided for GCN funding.
So continue, Naveen.
Yes, you continue, sir.
So now, so if a company which is having a book value at a loss and it is issuing shares at premium, then in that case, there could be a allegation that issue price is liable to be taxed under section 56 to 7B. So couple of, again, there is some benefits for the startups wherein that issue price will not be treated as income in the hands of the company which is issuing the shares. There is a section 79 which says that for carry forward of loss, as you are aware, in case of company, whenever there is a loss and you want to claim that loss in the subsequent year, the 51% shares has to be same in the year in which you suffer the loss and the year in which you want to claim the loss. Now, for the startup, this has been reduced. The 51% clause is no longer there. So, I mean, they can sell their stake, and they can, even otherwise also, they can get the benefit of carry forward of loss. Then there is a ESOP. In most of the startups, what happens, ESOPs are being granted to the key shareholders, to the key management personals, so that they can retain in the company. So, and ESOP, as you are aware, ESOP is taxed when the option is exercised. So, if the company has issued a ESOP and 2 years afterwards the employee has exercised that option and he is still continuing as an employee, but he does not have the adequate liquidity to pay the tax, because maybe 2 years down the line, the price, the fair market value of the share has gone up like anything, and he does not intend to sell the shares, but he wants to get the ESOP converted into equity share. So for the startups, there is a section which says that in case the employee wants to exercise the ESOP, then in that case, he will not pay the taxes for a period of 4 years. I will come in detail about this topic also in the later part of my presentation. So for startups, we have under the Income Tax Act, these 5 broadly the income tax benefits. Then for new manufacturing units, we have AB, which have been introduced from assessment year 2021. First year, the financial year which has just ended. Here also, if we are, and it may be possible that the unit may not have been set now. So there is a time which have been given that within a particular time, manufacturing unit can be set up. And if that unit can be set up within that time, then there is a reduced rate of tax of 15% plus surcharge, and the effective rate of tax is coming to 17.16%. Not only that, MAT is not applicable on those. I will be coming in detail about this topic also in the later part of my presentation. Friends, first, I can tell you with my experience that many of the chartered accountants, many of the chartered accountants are not registering their clients as startups. My presentation, you will understand that startup definition can have a ramification, and we should try to give some meaningful advice to the clients to register as a startups. So I tell you about ATIAC, that ATIAC 100% profit is exempted for the period of 3 years for eligible startup. Question is, what is eligible startup? The eligible startup is a company or LLP. So when you want to take a benefit of a 80 IAC, you have to form a company or a LLP. And the company or LLP cannot be more than 10 years old. So age cannot be more than 10 years. So even if it's an old entity, I mean, there's a misconception that startup has to be a new entity. It can also be an old entity, but it cannot be more than 10 years old. Then company or LLP, if you want to take a benefit under 80 IAC, but if you want to register as a startup and take a benefit under various other announcements by the finance minister and or the union, etc., without getting the income tax benefits, then even a registered partnership firm without a LLP is also eligible to being registered as a startup. The turnover requirement was 25 crore rupees. I mean, any company having a turnover within 25 crore rupees for last 10 years, they can register themselves as a startup. Now this 25 crore rupees has increased to 100 crore rupees. Original entity should not be formed by splitting up or reconstruction, and their business should be a innovative and scalable one. And what can be the business, that is coming in my next few lines. And then registration is compulsory. Again, I will come in the next slide. What can be the eligible business for being registered as a startup? The eligible business as defined in the Act is innovation, development, or improvement of products or process or services, or a scalable business model with a high potential of employment generation or wealth creation. My dear friends, normally what we think, it has to be intellectual business, it has to be something which is absolutely idea, etc. I'll give you some examples wherein the entity can be a startup, even as by the definition of startups within the meaning of the, as per the official gazette of the government. As per notification dated 19th Feb 2019 issued by DPIIT, the following business are also treated as eligible business. Renting of land or building can also be treated as a startup. So if you have an innovative way of giving it on rent, a real estate trading will be treated as a startup. Microfinance can be treated as a startup. Hiring of motor vehicles like Uber, Ola can also be treated as startups. A business in jewelry can also be treated as startups. I mean, just wondering, there can be a variety of business, maybe someone who entered into the sari or fashion garments or whatever it is. I mean, the startups can be, I mean, it's not like that it has to be a manufacturing or service industry. It can be even a variety of industry which can be treated as a startup. How to get the benefit of startups? You have to get yourself registered under DPIIT, and for registering, it's a simple online application. It's a application under startupindia.gov.in. So for registering, you don't require too many things. You make an application, you get the registration done. But for the purpose of income tax benefits under 80 IAC, you are required to file a separate form, that is form number 1. Step is like this: the first you have to get yourself registered as a startup. Then if you want to enjoy the benefits under Income Tax Act, then you have to file a separate application. And in the separate application, you have to give your startup registration number. And along with that, you are required to give a couple of the documents. So because this is not a session to be discussed in depth about how to get startup registration. So I'm not into that. So friends, I was discussing the startups, just trying to add that startup can be having a wide ramifications. We have to just broaden our thinking. Our clients or ourselves can get also registered as startups. Coming to the Income Tax Act, 80 IAC, I have told you it can be any years out of 7 years. So generally what happens in the initial years, the profit is under strain. So there is a huge depreciation benefit which you get in the initial years. You should not get the benefit of 80 IAC in the initial years, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line when you are having a profit. Then can 100% exemption what they are talking about, MAT is applicable. So in other words, even if you are getting a 100% reduction in the 80 ISC, you are prepared to pay AMT. 54 DPI discussed that when you are selling a residential house and you invest in a startup,
Chapiria
so
ji,
you are getting the entire capital.
excuse me, Chapiria ji.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sir, your voice is cracking a lot. I think bandwidth allocation problem is there. If you can request, if anybody else is using your network, they can stop their work for 10-15 minutes so that you can get the bandwidth share. Or if you can switch
So
to
nobody
a
is
separate,
sharing with, so in that case,
because for last few seconds, I think your voice is not coming at all.
now it is okay, Naveen.
Yeah, a bit better, sir.
So I have to come near the screen then. Okay. Should I continue?
Yes, sir, you continue, and in fact, might be there was a very small disturbance. I think you can continue, Naveen. We can hear him.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. What about the audience? I think he's audible and we can hear.
There is a little bit
5-10 minutes
disturbance today.
once
No
it's
issues.
disturbing. Sir, please continue. It's perfect.
Sound is breaking sometimes. Sound is breaking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm continuing now.
Yeah, yes.
So 54 GB condition is basically, I'm not discussing at length. It is simply that the entity in which, if you want to claim the exemption, you have to incorporate a startup company wherein you are having a 25% stake at least. 56 to see what happens when I'm reading, when I am trying to find out the benefits of startups under the Income Tax Act. I could not find many provisions which were there in the Act, because lot of provisions were there in the DPIIT guidelines. So when I was trying to find out what are the total benefits, tax benefits which are available to the startups, I have to read the DPIIT guidelines together with the Income Tax Act, and DPIIT guidelines is overriding the Income Tax Act. So if the Ministry of Commerce and Industry gives some benefits for the startups, and even though Income Tax Act is silent on that, so their income tax, what happens in the subsequent Finance Act, the income tax makes some amendments and start giving those benefits. And one of that section is section 56 to 7B, which is the angel tax. It says that in the DPIIT notification dated 19/5/2019, it was saying that 56 to 7B will not apply on startups, but IT Act was silent. Subsequently, CBDT came out with a circular number 16/2019 on 7th August 2019, saying that there was a gap, and so 56 to 7B, I mean the difference between your issue price and the fair market value will not be treated as your income in the hand of the company which values the shares and issue the shares at a premium. ESOP guidelines, I have discussed that ESOP, what happens, there is no taxation immediately if a person exercises the ESOPs in a startups, but then tax liability is freezed, but the payment is after 48 months. For example, if there is a startup which issues a ESOP to an employee and it issues the shares at a price of 100 rupees, the employee exercises the option after 1 year. At that time, the fair market value of the share is 1,000 rupees. Under the normal provisions of Income Tax Act, this 900 rupees is taxable when the employee exercises the option. But for the startups, it is said that if the employee is continuing, in that case, his liability to pay tax is freezed between 1,000 rupees and 100 rupees. But he is liable to pay tax after 48 months from the date the ESOP was given. So this is a very interesting thing that the salaried employee under the startups, they are not liable to pay tax immediately. Section 79, I told already. In a case of a startup, what happened? Most of the startups are having huge losses in the initial years. Their market valuation may be high, but they are having a huge losses. So Section 79 has an amendment which said that in case of startups, loss will continue to be allowed, even if 51% shareholders did not remain the same. For a new manufacturing company, Section 115BAB, it says that tax rate will be 15% plus it comes down to roughly around 17.16%. Interestingly, for new manufacturing company, there is no MAT. So if you are opting for 115BAB, unlike a startup, if you are going for 80 IAC, you are required to pay a MAT. For new manufacturing company, you are not required to pay MAT. My dear friends, it can be possible that there is a manufacturing company we can also register itself as a startup and take the benefit of both the sections, the section which suits it. So the manufacturing company should not do any other business other than manufacturing. So that's one of the important criteria. My dear friends, I discussed about the startups. I told that the startups can also be a trading concern. Question is, we hear a lot of things about MSME. So whether MSME, whether trading concern can register itself as a MSME. If I look at the Income Tax Act does not have any special benefits for the MSME other than Section 54GB. So, but then I was just wondering, if a company is a trading concern as well as doing a service industry, can it register as a MSME? I am not discussing the definition of MSME. This is not very common. For MSME also, for all the entities, to take it simple, for financial year 1920, we have an effective rate of tax of 25.16% if we opt for 115BAA. Interestingly, there is no MAT. My dear friends, one very important section which is often overlooked is 80JJAA, which I will be discussing in the subsequent slide. So for a company, we have 3 rates of taxes now. One, for all the companies, we have a tax rate of 22%. This does not, whether you are registered as a startup or not, whether you are registered as MSME or not, whether you are doing a manufacturing or not, you can always opt for 115BAA, irrespective of your size. The effective rate of tax comes to 25.16%. There is a compulsory surcharge of 10% and cess of 4%. There is no MAT applicable on such companies. There is no domestic transactions applicability on those companies. Then we have a Section 115BAB, wherein it's for manufacturing units, wherein the tax rate is 15%, again surcharge 10%, cess 4%. So this is applicable only for those units which have been formed after 1st October 2019. And then lastly, if we don't exercise 115BAA, then you have a tax rate of 30% or 25%. Sorry. Okay. So I will suggest that most of the companies, I think, will be able to take the benefit of 115BAA. So that has to be minutely checked, and then the effective rate of tax comes to 25%. And not only that, when the company distributes the dividend out of it, so there is no dividend distribution tax nowadays. Yes, the dividend may be taxable in the hands of the recipient, but then there is no dividend distribution tax in the hands of company. For MSME, we have other tax incentives. For instance, we have presumptive taxation is for all non-corporate SSE which are having a turnover less than 2 crore rupees. That was always there. You are required to, you can offer a tax of 6% or 8% of your turnover as your profit. You are not required to maintain any books. Friends, I was talking about a Section 80JJAA, which is a widely unutilized section. Previously, this section was applicable to industrial undertaking. Now, this section is applicable to all undertakings, be it trading or manufacturing or service sector, whatever it is. And interestingly, this section says whatever is your NIV additional employee cost, you are getting a 30% of deduction for 3 assessment years. I mean, those there are conditions that such additional employees should be registered under PF. His salary should not be more than 25,000 rupees. I'm not going into that part of it. My point here is that what the definition of additional employee. I'm just giving an example. For example, if the number of employee in financial year 18-19 is 20, and the number of employee in financial year 19-20 is 21, in between 6 employees left and 7 new employees joined. So number of employee has increased by only 1, but the total number of employees has increased. Then we are eligible under section 80 JJAA. So what benefit we can get? We are entitled to get a benefit. Sorry.
So this 30% relief is like how? In form of rebate from the tax or?
Deduction from your income.
Okay.
80 JJAA is not a rebate, it is a deduction.
So, but that is allowed in the normal course of business also, or my salary cost? So how is different?
For a business associate is there, if you are carrying on a business. I'm just talking about, okay, suppose you are into a service industry.
Yeah.
And you had a 20 employee in financial year 18-19, and 21 in 19-20. And some employees left, some employees joined. And new employee was 7. So then whatever salary you paid for the 7 new employees, I mean, those employees should not be having a salary of more than 25,000 rupees per month.
Okay.
And those employees used to be covered under PF Act also.
Okay.
So if you are covering
all the employees, none of the employees would get more than 25,000?
No. For those employees, you want to give a deduction under section 80 JJAA. Not all.
Suppose out of 7, one is having salary more than 25,000. Balance
So
are having.
six will be eligible.
6 will be eligible. Okay.
So what happens, because there is a possibility that this year, because of this COVID-19 thing and all, maybe there is some of our clients, a lot of employees left away, or the client has to force them to leave. And in next year, the business picks and take a new employee. So, and this year profit may be under strain, next year the profit can be high. So as Mr. Sharaf was telling about, follow-on के बाद का चीज क्या करना है? I was just wondering कि some tax advice करते हैं जो follow-on के बाद काम आ सके. Anyway, so I think this point is clear. 80 JJAA is very widely unutilized. So I just thought of just discussing a bit about that.
Sir, 80 JJAA is only applicable to MSME registered companies.
For all SSCs having a tax audit, be it a partnership firm, proprietorship firm, company, whatever it is.
Okay.
You should be covered under tax audit.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Okay. So it is applicable to all who are covered under tax audit.
Okay.
Okay.
It is not restricted to MSME.
Okay.
Okay. So now,
Okay,
my dear
sir.
friends, with my experience, whenever we are thinking of a new venture, besides the income tax, I mean, with my experience, I was just sharing some of my experiences. One very important aspect is the location, because if there is a state subsidy scheme in various states, then sometimes nature is very important, because I remember I was talking about this baby diaper of thing. The tough subsidy is normally available on textiles, but then within the textiles, diaper got covered. So you have to minutely check, I mean, the various incentives, and maybe we are eligible for, normally under common parlance, we may not be thinking that we are eligible for that benefit, but if we look minutely, then we may be getting a benefit of that. Then the registration as a MSME or a startup, because whatever we are normally thinking, that may not be the technical words. Sometimes what happens, some states say that you can get a benefit only if you are a company. For example, in the income tax sector also, you are getting the benefit of startups only if you are a company or a LLP. So when you have to carefully select the form of organization to register as a private limited company or a LLP or then keeping in mind the subsidy scheme and the tax benefits. So last but not the least, whenever we are thinking of any expansion, it may not necessarily mean that we have to set a new unit. As I was telling about you, that startup does not necessarily mean a new company. It can even be a 10-year, 5 years old company. So again, we have to think out of the box and decide whether to go for a new entity, because having a two entities, again, sometimes there is a loss in one entity, profit in another company. So there is no setup of loss. So I mean, that need to be fully examined, find out whether unit or set up a new company, new concern, or show expansion in the existing concern. Atmanirbhar package has been discussed in detail by my previous staff, so I'm not going into that. He discussed about that loan enhancement, fund of funds, government tenders, government contractors. EPF, my dear friends, that need to be, sometimes we have to guide our clients for that EPF, because those establishments which are having less than 100 employees, and wherein 90% of the staffs are drawing less than 15,000 rupees, in that case, the entire PF contribution of employer and employee of 12% each will be borne by the government for the period from March to August. So this is a very, very important thing. I understand very few organizations will be able to match this criteria, but then 24% of the employee cost is a big cost. Then RERA, I'm not discussing, time will not allow me to discuss upon that. There have been a couple of announcements in the ordinance and Atmanirbhar packages. I'm just touching briefly. One is the belated return due date filing has been extended. Tax audit due date has been extended. The income tax return filing date has been extended from July or September to November. So now all the assessees, they can file their return till 30th of November. Tax audit, September was the date. Now it has been extended till October. Transfer pricing date is yet to be extended. I think in the proposed ordinance, the transfer pricing date will also get extended. Then there is an internal instruction by the department that no adverse notice to be issued. I mean, there is an action plan dated 8th May 2020, wherein the CBDT has instructed the income tax department they have barred income tax department from issuing any scrutiny notices, adverse notices, which adversely affect the sentiment of the assessee. In the meantime, what has happened is that whatever notices was due in March 2020, by way of ordinance dated 31st March 20, that due date has been extended till 30th June 2020. So there is a controversy here that the notice issuing time is getting barred on 30th June. On the other hand, there is an interim central action plan which says that the notice cannot be issued by any income tax department because that will affect the sentiment of the assessee. I feel that the ordinance will clarify this issue, or else the action plan has to be revised. I mean, time will tell, but as of now, you can be rest assured, because some days back, one of my client who was in Jharkhand, he told me कि छपड़े जी मेरे पास में डिपार्टमेंट का फोन आया कि हम आपका ये नोटिस इश्यू कर देगा, आप आके मिलो. हम आपको मिलने का दरकार ही नहीं है. They cannot issue any notice at all because they have been barred from issuing any notice. Then, if you delay in payment of tax, the rate of interest has been reduced to 9% from earlier 12% or 18%. There will be no penalty for delayed payment of tax. TDS and TCS, whatever was the rates earlier, it has been reduced by 25%. So if the TDS rates on interest was 10%, so it is now 7.5%. So that rates have been revised not only for the 3 months or 6 months, it has been revised for the entire year from 14th May 2020 till 31st March 2021. BSc team extended till not discussing BSc because it will again take 15-20 minutes time for me to discuss that. Just briefly touching, the date has been extended 31st. December. Then for all deductions under section 80G, 80D, you could have you could contribute till 30th June and still make a claim for assessment year 2021. Again, exemption, those assessees who are giving 15G and 15H, a simple procedure has been given, wherein based upon the previous year's information, the department will issue 15G and 15G certificates, lower deduction certificates, and Aadhaar and PAN linking date has been extended till 30th June 2020. In tax audit report, there was a point of reporting of GAR provisions and GST provisions that has been deferred by 1 year. My dear friends, there was a confusion that financial year has been extended. Subsequently, the clarification has been given by Government of India that the financial year has been extended in the context of Indian Stamp Act and not for the purpose of accounting. So the financial year remains same till 31st March 2020. Income tax refunds have been widely issued. You must have got information from the clients that they have got the income tax refund. Friends, GST is not my topic, but then I just wanted to quickly touch upon some of the GST relaxations with respect to MSME. My partner, my friend Mayank helped me with this. So for MSME, turnover threshold is now 40 lakhs for supply of goods. I mean, if you are doing an intra-state sale, then up to 40 lakhs you are not required to go for MSME for that GST registration. For service industry or inter-state sales, 20 lakhs is the limit. Turnover threshold for opting composition levy, 50 lakhs for service providers, and 1.5 crores for traders and manufacturers. As you are aware, there is a turnover threshold for quoting HSN code in the tax invoice. So no HSN code is required for turnover up to 1.5 crore rupees. This is for, you can say, relaxations for MSME, 2-digit HSN code for 1.5 to 5 crore rupees and 4-digit HSN code for turnover beyond 5 crore rupees. Then turnover threshold for annual return and annual audit. Now annual return is not required for turnover up to 2 crore rupees, and annual audit under 9C is not required for turnover up to 5 crore rupees. Yesterday, some GST, some announcements have been made with respect to time limit of some compliances by GST Council. Yesterday, there were some announcements wherein some time limit of some compliances has been extended to 30th September 2020, and waiver of interest for delayed payment for certain cases having turnover up to 5 crore rupees. Friends, before I end, let me tell you that though there is a small announcement of only 50,000 odd crore rupees for reduction of TDS and TCS rates by the finance minister, but then couple of days back the CBDT came out with a tabular calculation that by way of reduction in the tax rates for the financial year 1920, by increasing the 22% reduction in the tax rate to 22% and abolition of MAT, there is a relief of around 1.45 crore rupees to the corporates for financial year 1920. Then, as you are aware, faceless e-assessments, the department offices have been barred from issuing notices. Then, an important thing has come up, that is document identification number. I mean, from 1st October 2019, the department cannot issue any notice to any person without putting in that income tax portal. I mean, any notice issued by the department has to have a DIN, document identification number, and there can be a trail of that document. With your pen, you can find out whether that notice have been validly issued. So random issued of notices have been barred with the introduction of DIN under the income tax laws. My dear friends, all goody things are there, but then some deterrent provisions are always there, which we must be aware of. Section 115 BBE, that if you are having any unexplained cash credit, unexplained expenditure, so the tax rate is coming to 75 plus 4, 78% tax is there. And then a new section have been introduced, that is by this Finance Act 2020, that is 271 AD, which says that if we are having any false entry in our books of accounts, then the entire amount may be treated as a penalty under section 271 AD. If you are having cash receipts exceeding 2 lakhs rupees by way of single transaction, we can have a 269 ST, and entire amount may be treated as a penalty. Then, friends, we have Benami Act and the PMLA Act, which are always acting as a draconian. So we have to be, going forward with the incentives, we should be aware of that. Okay, incentives are there, but then there are a lot of deterrent provisions which have been introduced in the Act. And with that, I think I have already exceeded my time limit allotted to me. Friends, I am. If any question is there, let the moderator ask me. I organize. I am ready to answer that. With this, thank you very much for the patient hearing. Very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And friends, in normal course of business, if I go to Chapadiaji for so much of the advice, he must have billed 2 lakhs of rupees. So it's lucky to have him here. Yeah. And I request fellow chartered accountants in the question and answer, whatever the questions they have, the questions they can raise and get benefited from this session. I would request Naveen Khemkaji to go ahead with the question and answer session. And Naveen, how they can raise hands, and you will.
I will call up the names whoever is raising their hands, and then we will say their name. Then they can unmute themselves and ask the question.
Yeah. So let's open the question and answer session, Naveen.
Yeah, we can open the question and answer session.
Yeah.
Vijayji, I'm having a few questions in my emails, as well as few questions were there in the chat box. So if we can clear out those, and then we can ask the participants.
Now it's your baby. Take it from here.
This question can be answered by either Vivek ji or Prashant ji. I got a mail from C.A. Shyam Agarwal. He has asked that his client has been banking with Nationalized Bank for past 5 years. As on 29th February 2020, his loan account is categorized as SMA2 by the bankers. As a result, he is denied the loan under COVID-19 loan as announced by our finance minister. What resource does he have now?
Under the scheme, Prashant here, under the scheme, he does not have any recourse if it is classified as SMA2. That is, if overdues are for more than 60 days, there is no recourse available under this scheme. Whatever loan the bank extends, it will not be covered under the guarantee.
Okay, sir.
Hi, Vivek here. So
another question is from Vinod Kumar Goyal. The enhanced limit of investment in plant rupees 50 crore is to be
Navinji, I just want to. Sorry,
yeah,
I just wanted to add to what.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to add to what Prashant ji mentioned. So apart from the ECL scheme, there was one more 20,000 crore stressed account scheme which the finance minister had launched. So these are typically for businesses where, although the account may have been categorized as SMA2 or even an NPA, but if we see that the business is viable, this particular entity may apply for loan under that. I still don't have all the operational guidelines on how this will happen, but I'm sure over the next few days, this will be out there in public domain.
There's a few questions with respect to MSME. I think Chapadiaji can answer. If a manufacturing company have incorporated after 1/10/19 and have MSME registration, can we take benefit of 115 BAB?
We have incorporated the company after 1st October 2019. I'm just wondering, manufacturing चालू कर पाओगे क्या March तक? But coming to your answer, yes, you are eligible.
Whether a can be registered under MSME, and what are the benefits?
Registration under MSME is not required for getting a benefit under 115 BAB. what is required is the company should be incorporated after 1st October 2019. Under the IT Act, MSME registration is not required. But yes, if you are doing a manufacturing, then you should register yourself as an MSME.
Okay. Another question was, can a CA firm be registered under MSME? And any benefits a CA firm can avail except availing loan?
Our firm is registered under MSME.
Okay. So
we have not taken any loan.
I mean, the benefit is that like your clients can't hold your bills. They have to pay you in time.
Another question was with respect to the enhanced limit of investment in plant rupees 50 crore is to be reckoned as WDV or the original cost for an unit running for several years as non-MSME due to older parameters. This is again, I think it's in relation to a definition of MSME.
It's a gross block always. It's a gross block of plant and machinery and not net block.
Okay.
Acha Prashant ji, in
Yes,
that case, a old unit cannot avail the enhanced limits.
Sir, if the gross block is within 50 crore, whether it is a new unit or an old unit, as long as gross block is within 50 crore, and gross block also there are certain exclusions. So
Of course, building is excluded.
Yes. So there are certain things, storage, building and all is excluded. If the gross block of eligible investment is within 50 crore, it is eligible.
So
And
gross
normally
block may be 15 years old also.
Yes, sir. Whatever it is, sir. So normally what happens is in certain organizations where in balance sheets also the gross block is not carried, we do rely on certificates from chartered accountants that the gross block is X.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, what we can do is that in case like gross block is quite old and some of the assets can be discarded from the balance sheet if the value is negligible. In that case, it should not be counted, and again, it should, come within the definition of 50 crores.
Normally, sir, we rely on. Normally, Vijay, we will rely on your certificate.
So one more question is there.
On this. If the gross block, suppose there is a 51 crore of the gross block, now 2 crores assets has become quite obsolete, and that is discarded completely from the list of plant and machinery.
Vijay, we will reckon whatever is the gross block as of the last audited balance sheet. So it cannot be done during the year. It is the gross block as of the last audited balance sheet.
That is fine.
And whatever is the number, we will rely on that.
Right.
Having said that, there is a rider to it. One, this gross block thing is becoming applicable from 1st of July. Second, for the purpose of banks, the RBI notification is yet to come whether they will classify them as priority sector for banks. So we are awaiting that RBI circular.
And about equity participation, guidelines have been issued or not yet?
Sir, I have not been able to lay my hands on it. I'm not sure. I will not be able to answer that. But I have not seen that.
Thank you.
Chapreji, there is one question with respect to TDS rates has been reduced by 25%. No circular had been issued. Is this legally standing without a circular?
The ordinance has to come on the basis of press release. It is binding on the department, but it has to become a part of the act. So I think sooner or later the ordinance will clarify that.
Okay. One thing a lot of persons was asking whether a trader is eligible to be registered as an MSME.
Yes, traders are eligible as long as you are meeting the criteria. Traders are eligible. We have seen traders getting registered as a service provider. So traders are eligible as long as you are meeting the criteria of this definition.
I think I've asked all the questions which are there on the chat box. Now I can ask the members who are there, if they want to ask, they can unmute themselves and ask the question to the speakers.
Hi, sir.
Yes, tell me.
Sir, Chaudhary, can you listen me? Hello.
Surendraji, your voice is not
My
clear.
voice is audible.
No, it was not clear, sir. You're having a bad network connection, sir.
Okay, sir. I'm telling the date of action. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Hello.
You can text in the chat box so that Naveen can take the question.
Hi, this is Sanjeev Agarwal. Chaparji ji, my question is whether this 56 to 7B is not applicable to MSME only if there is a registered venture capital or angel funding, or it can be for a private placement also?
To 7B, coming to the startups, we have a specific circular which says that for startups, 56 to 7B does not apply, provided a startup has taken a separate registration for the taking a fresh private placement. Now, if we are getting a fund from venture capital, even otherwise 56 to 7B does not say that for venture capital you are required to, I mean that if SEBI registered entities are there, some entities have been defined 56 to 7B. So if we are getting fund from those entities, we are not covered under 56 to 7B. I mean, you can issue the shares at a price exceeding the book value.
Okay, thank you.
Prashant ji, I had a question in mind. When you were deliberating, you said that the bankers are more comfortable in financing the growth capital portion. Basically, whenever the loan comes in, there's two factors: risk capital portion and growth capital portion. And
yes.
As per your reading, I got the point that bankers are more comfortable in financing growth capital portion, and risk capital portion has to be brought in by the promoter. In this COVID situation and other pandemic situations, the risk capital is the major portion where the promoters are seeking help from the banks. So whether this is a RBI guideline or it's banking special guidelines or something, I maybe wrong.
No. This is nothing to do with an RBI guideline or a bank guideline. This is something when I'm assessed proposal. Normally, you'd have heard 75% आपको लाना है, 25%, 75% bank देगा, 25% is what you bring. So that is the risk capital that I'm talking about. Nothing to do with any RBI guideline or an internal bank guideline. This is something that we assess. So when we are seeing this emergency line of credit that is being extended, we can say this is something coming in the form of risk capital being funded by banks, and where we are getting the guarantee from that trust.
But can we see, sir, any changes from the banking portion wherein I think this risk rate line guideline was also being announced by government, wherein bank was compelled to give? Is there anything where banking sector from this themselves come up for the MSME sectors?
See, again, as I said, eligible borrowers even now are getting enhancements. In my bank, they are getting. I'm sure in Standard Chartered also banks, borrowers are able to get enhancements. See, the business model has to demand that kind of a growth funding. As long as you got a business model that is going, we will want to fund. This guarantee fund is just to help you, as someone had said, to kickstart operations for this period of 2.5-3 months. Operations were not running, so this will help you to kickstart. Having said that, it must only be availed if you feel it is required in your business, and in no way these funds should go out of business to unnecessarily burden the business even further. From banks, there is the credit principles have not changed. Principles of banks in terms of extending credit, they remain what they are. If you've got a robust business model, banks will fund.
So there's no relief, I think, from banking sector in case of ascertaining the credit lines of the MSME sector. Because
I don't think, sir, will not be able. I don't think
one is not having any collateral to issue and has a business proposition, but I think he won't be able to get any loan from banking sector.
No, sir. As long as you have a business proposition. See, again, when we are talking about a collateral is a fallback. To explain this example, say you are into providing you're into doing some kind of a conversion business for ITC. Now I know your cash flows are going to come from ITC. You can get those bills of ITC once they are raised, discounted from me. I don't need a collateral. You do that business with ITC. If there is a vintage, I don't even need those bills to come. I know your monthly billing to ITC is going to be 5 crore rupees. You're going to get your payment in 45 days. So I'll give you 5 crore.
So we can say the business model can decide whether the
yes,
collateral is required or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is the business model. Yes, wherever the business model is weak, the collateral's requirement goes up.
Okay, sir.
When Chapariaji says there is a loan that gets sanctioned without collateral, there was a model he had, and he came with some kind of an MOU in his hand. I would not want to discuss any further on this, but yes, if you have a model, collateral is only a mitigant.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions?
To Chhabadiya ji, suppose, hello, I'm audible?
Yes, sir, please.
Chhabadiya ji, suppose now a notice is received under Section 48 from the officer, income tax officer. What should we do? Should we reply, or should we file the return, or what we should do? If there is no amendment, suppose in the latest press release.
नोटिस छापरे जी अपना वो ऑफिसर नौकरी को नहीं गवाएगा, आपको नोटिस इश्यू नहीं करेगा। सारी नोटिस में दिन नंबर लगता है, सारी नोटिस में दिन नंबर है।
नहीं, दिन नंबर दे के मान लीजिए मिलता है, नो
नहीं कर सकता है ना, बिकॉज इट वोंट बी अलाउड। मतलब he cannot bypass the action plan.
Okay, thank you.
So one more question. As you all said that the policies which has been given by the government, it's on papers right now. There's no clear-cut instruction as to how the banks has to deal with this funding of MSME who are stressed, who are above 100 crores or 25 crores. We're expecting guidelines from RBI with respect to all these benefits which has to be transferred to MSMEs.
See, other than this additional emergency line of credit, there is that relief that has been extended by RBI for all entities, irrespective. The only exclusion being entities that are already NPA as on 29th of February. Every single enterprise is entitled to this relief of not having to pay their interest or installments of term loan in two different tranches. First, they extended it from 1st of March to 31st of May, and that has been further rolled over from 1st of June to 31st of August. So entities do not have to pay any installment or interest if they so desire. One. Second is, there is now in the second moratorium, we call it moratorium 2.0, from 1st of June to 31st of August, the entire amount that is due, it can be converted into into a term loan to be repaid over a period. So that relief is available to all the borrowers. The emergency line that we were talking about is of additional funding is restricted to MSMEs, not to MSMEs again. That also is a misnomer, to entities whose turnover is within 100 crore and borrowings on fund-based limit outstanding on 29th of February is within 25 crore. It might not even be an MSME.
Okay. And sir, regarding that few smaller loans which has been announced, that a street vendor or a sabji wala, or they can avail a 10,000 rupees loan. Will this be disbursed only by the PSUs, or the private sector will also be a part of it?
Private sector will also be a part of it, but honestly, I don't personally look into this, so I can answer this question offline. I'll have to get the details, but yes, we are eligible, I am aware, and we are working on it. But okay, beyond that, I will have to get details.
Naveen, I would like to add.
Yeah, please.
Banks are segregating like whether the stress was pre-COVID, was the business was stressful, or is the post-COVID. So under this new guidelines, it cannot happen like the customer was already stressed or almost in the 60 days bracket or about to reach, and then he is already getting a 6-month moratorium, and then further he can be funded. So banks need to segregate whether the pre-COVID there was a stress or the stress is due to the COVID and the post-COVID. Am I right, sir?
Sir, yes, banks are doing this, and I believe rightly so. Having said that, the scheme does not limit that. What banks are just trying to analyze or look at is, as an organization, are you really going to be benefited out of this, or are you only going to increase your borrowings? But the scheme does not limit, and any borrower who is meeting the criteria, there are three criteria. I'll repeat: turnover for financial year 2020 and not 2019. Turnover for financial year 2020 is within 100 crore. The actual outstanding fund-based limits from all multilateral lending institutions, banks, NBFCs, financial institutions, as on 29th of February is within 25 crore. And if you are required to be registered under GST, you are registered. Primarily, if these three things are met and there is no overdue of more than 60 days on 29th of February on that day, then you are eligible.
Prashant ji, I have a question basically. In the COVID situation, how banks are basically calculating DP power of borrower, as normally 90 days debtors are considering in case of DP power. But as you can see, April, May, generally most of the companies do not have got any receipts from their debtors. So how this situation has been
So I believe Pallavi is asking this question. Yes, Pallavi,
Yes.
that
Yes,
relaxation has also been provided, where banks have been allowed to reassess the drawing power. The tenure of debtors has been extended, and drawing power calculations have been revised in whichever case it is required to be done. Debtors period, we understand, have got extended, and the DP has got recalculated.
Okay, sir. Is there any circular in this regard actually?
These are guidelines that have been issued by Reserve Bank of India. You can access those guidelines. You can go to RBI site. These guidelines are available. They were announced in the first tranche itself. In the first tranche itself, they were announced. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Vijay, can we end up or we should wait?
Yes.
I think time is already over, na?
Yes, time is already over.
Including the vote of thanks.
I would request Saroj Swaika ji, if he's come forward and please offer a formal vote of thanks to all the speakers.
I think Swaika ji has left already, na?
No, Swaika ji was. Yeah, Saroj ji, please.
Let's come, join. Okay.
Yes, Jawar ji.
You can switch on your video, Saroj ji.
Am I audible, Naveen?
You're audible. Your video is off, sir.
Okay. I, on behalf of Use Exchange and all the members present here, thank to Shri Prashant ji, Shri Vivek Saraf ji, and Shri KK Chaparia ji for sharing their deliberate knowledge with us on MSME. They have explained in very detailed with respect to the various provisions of MSME, definitions, how they are helping the borrowers with respect to the announcements made by our Ministry of Finance, how they can cope up with good and reliable feedbacks from our professional fraternity, so that there is a good growth in the business in the coming days. I again thank everybody to give a patient hearing and updating themselves from the learned speakers. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, the speakers. Over to Naveen.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'll sign off this meeting now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Swayaka ji.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Javaji.
everyone.
Chabadiya ji, thank you, sir. Very nice deliberations.